I can't believe I'm about to say this right now. The New York Giants terrify me. As a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan who spent the first several years of my life about 8 blocks from Lincoln Financial Field, I am petrified of the New York Giants this season. For those of you that have never met an Eagles fan in your life, you should know that people from Philadelphia know exactly what is going to be the thing to ruin the Eagles' perfect season. And this is coming from somebody who has been with the team through the crazy Sam Bradford, Kevin Cobb years, through the Super Bowl victory with Nick Foles as our quarterback, even the early Andy Reid years when we had Shady McCoy, Deshaun Jackson. I've been with the Eagles through everything, and I know exactly what could be the thing to ruin our great season this year. We're coming off of a Super Bowl loss, a very tough one, but returning a lot of great starters, a great quarterback, a lot of young talent that's been developing on this team for a while. But the New York Giants, the New York Football Giants, this team right here could be the very thing that blows this entire season up for us. So in today's video, we are going to talk about why this team could not only come out of the NFC East, make the playoffs, and make a deep playoff run, but also how they could spoil things for just about every team in the NFC. Let's get started.
Touring out, selling out shows. Made a call following like Jim Jones. Dripping, I be putting down. Looking at the crowd, I see a couple of clones. Little girl kiss, hit the gas, and I'm gone. Expensive drugs keep me in my zone.
First of all, we got to talk about the fact that this team had one of the most slept-on NFL drafts of anybody in the entire league. Starting off with Deonte Banks, who's a really solid DB. He was actually my third favorite corner in the entire draft. I liked him more than Emmanuel Forbes and Joey Porter. He's just got great fluidity. He's always in phase, has really solid ball skills as well. And honestly, probably one of the highest floors of any corner in this year's draft as well. But a really solid pick for them late in the first round. Great value. And if you don't remember, last season without James Bradbury, they really suffered without having a CB1. And now I think they have a guy who after about 5 or 6 games is really going to be solid for them. Then moving to the second round, you get a plug-and-play starting center for an offensive line that has only gotten better throughout the years. Evan Neal's only going to take a step forward, same as Andrew Thomas, who played really well last year. And then you put this guy in the middle, that's going to be a problem. He's not a Tyler Linderbaum type prospect, but he's a really good football player. And then you look at the Biletnikoff winning wide receiver, Jalen Hyatt, in the third round. Guy's got breakaway speed, the ability to take the top off of a defense. This kid is an immediate starter for them. And in all honesty, with a weak safety group in Philadelphia, he could easily exploit our lack of speed on the back end and just be an absolute weapon for them. And then you look at their late picks in the draft, and these guys aren't game breakers, but Eric Gray in the 5th round, the running back out of Oklahoma, he's a really solid football player, man. He's not going to be a starter for them, but great on special teams, a great back who's going to get some tick late in games, especially when Saquon needs a break or Matt Breida is out with an injury. He's a really solid football player, and he's going to make the roster at least, and that's really all you need from a 5th round pick. Then you move down, Jordan Riley, the D tackle. He is a poor man's Siaka Ika. He's got all of the size. He's about, I believe, 6'5", 340 pounds, just an absolute menace. And to put him on the inside and potentially develop him into something special, the physical attributes are there. This guy just needs a lot of coaching, but I think with that coaching staff over there in New York, they're going to do a great job. And then the rest of the guys, I mean, Javarius Owens was the last safety taken in the entire draft, but I think he's going to make the roster too. He's a really solid special teamer. He hustles, and he's a really stout tackler, man. I mean, just to have this guy on kickoff, punt, just to do anything, but a really solid draft. They did so much with the picks that they had, and they got 3 guys who are going to end up being starters on this football team. Now, moving on to some more acquisitions they made this offseason through the form of trades, free agent signings. There are a lot of underrated moves that they made in this aspect too. Starting off with the obvious, the elephant in the room, the trade that they made for Darren Waller for basically nothing except for taking the salary cap away from the Raiders. Now, has he been healthy for the past couple of years? No, but I also think that's in part to the fact that the Raiders are a very dysfunctional franchise. But if you can get this guy healthy for about 16 games, he is going to be a difference maker. Considering that they were throwing to Daniel Bellinger, no offense, he's a solid football player, but not even close to the weapon that Darren Waller is. Isaiah Hodgins, who played well, but again, Darren Waller is one of the best weapons in the sport. And then when you compound that with the fact that down here, They were also able to sign Paris Campbell from the Colts, who's not great, but a really solid wide receiver 3 and somebody that is much better than whoever else they were going to have on that roster. I think that that's enough to help this team out. When you consider the fact that they won 9 games with the guys that they did have, this makes all the difference. And then moving on to some of their defensive acquisitions, which I thought were really slept on. Bobby McCain, the safety, going from the Commanders to the Giants, that's going to be huge. I think he's going to be great playing next to Xavier McKinney. They really complement each other well. Xavier McKinney's obviously their free safety, going to cover the back end of that defense. But Bobby McCain, not afraid to get into the trenches, make tackles, play physical football. And then you look at Raheem Nunez-Roches, who has plenty of playoff experience, a really solid interior D lineman, especially when Vita Vea was out with injuries for the Buccaneers. Big guy, one of the only true nose tackles that we actually have in the sport, and a really solid player. He's going to be a great complement to Leonard Williams and be really good on the interior of that defensive line. And then you go further down the list and you see 2 more awesome acquisitions for them, starting off with the one that I think is the most underrated. Amani Oruwariye going from the Lions to the Giants. He obviously didn't work out in Detroit, but I think that was part of the dysfunction of the organization for years and his inability to be able to develop under a revolving door at the coaching staff and just not a lot of help at the DB position. But this kid has a lot of talent, had a great career at Penn State, and he also had a really solid sophomore season. So if they're able to develop him well, him and Deonte Banks, who I mentioned earlier, who they got in the draft, that's going to be a really solid duo. And then Bobby Okereke, one of the league's leading tacklers, coming from the Colts to the Giants to play linebacker. I think that's going to be great. I mean, he's better than Blake Martinez, who they had for the past couple of years, and he'll definitely be better than Jalen Smith, who they signed mid-season last year. This guy is young, really good sideline to sideline, also pretty solid in coverage. I understand that he's not a Pro Bowl linebacker, an All-Pro, not any of those guys, but he's a high-end starter and can really help out this defense, which played really well last year to begin with, and the fact that they've only gotten better this offseason, that's a good sign. And last but not least, we have to talk about their schedule this year, because even though they're playing some high-end competition, they're playing them at some very advantageous points in the season. Starting off with Week 1 against the Cowboys, I think this is a very winnable game for them, especially in prime time against Dak Prescott. Let's not forget, this offensive line in Dallas has been a problem for years. Their best players are getting older. Zach Martin's on the verge of retirement. Same with Tyron Smith. And these 2 young pass rushers, Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, I think are going to be the difference maker in this game, especially when you consider that CeeDee Lamb is far and beyond the best receiver in this matchup. But at home against the Cowboys Week 1 with the reigning coach of the year, Brian Daboll, I think they're going to come out with a head of steam and win this game. Then they have a layup against the Cardinals the following week. Then they go on the road to San Francisco, who we don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for this team yet. We don't know if Brock Purdy's going to be healthy. We don't know how Sam Darnold's going to look, or Trey Lance for that matter, or if he's even going to be on the team at this point in the season. So that's a potential win for them. I think they'll have a tough game at home against the Seahawks, but another winnable matchup. I don't think the talent disparity is that crazy either, even though I'm really high on the Seahawks and I think they will win this game. But definitely not a give me for either team. The Dolphins game is probably going to be tough, but the following week, they get to play the Bills the week after they come back from London, which if you know anything about jet lag, I should know because I was just living overseas for the past 6 months. It could ruin your entire week. And that game against the Jaguars in London is going to be a tough one. Trevor Lawrence is a dog, and that team is coming off of a playoff win. And I think Brian Daboll against his former team, if anybody knows the Buffalo Bills, it's him. That's a trap game for the Bills, and I think they could possibly win that one on the road in Buffalo, especially before it gets too cold. Then I think they're going to beat the Commanders. Nothing about the Commanders really swings me either way unless Sam Howell comes out and plays like the next Tom Brady, but I'm not really bought in on them. The Jets game is obviously going to be tough, but we can give them a loss. I think that they've given themselves a little bit of cushion here. I think they're going to beat the Raiders. They are definitely a better team than them. The Cowboys the second time is going to be tough, but I still think that they're the better team. Same thing with Washington the following week. Then the Patriots one's going to be tough. They're really well coached, but I could give that a 50% for either way, flip a coin, and that's who's going to win. Then coming off the bye, you got the Packers. I think that's an easy win. We don't know what Jordan Love's going to look like. That offense is deprived of any weapons, and the O-line is old and beat up. And then the Saints as well. I just think that they play in a really bad division, so they'll win plenty of games. But, I mean, it's a very winnable game for them. Then away against the Eagles on Christmas, probably a loss for them, but I could definitely see them sneaking one out, playing the Eagles 2 times in 3 weeks. That's just a bad opportunity for any team. It's very hard to beat the same team twice in a very short period of time, and it's very possible that the Eagles have already clinched a playoff spot, don't play anyone Week 18, and they sneak a win out there. But as you can see, even though a lot of these teams are really solid, they have a few layups in there. They have some good opportunities to win, like against the Bills coming from overseas, and I could see them winning plenty of games next year. In an NFC that is not very competitive, they might need only 9 or 10 wins to get into the playoffs, clinch a wild card spot, and then make their presence felt. Let's not forget this team did the same thing last year when everyone thought they were going to be drafted in the top 5. Then they go out, win 9 games, have a Coach of the Year type performance, then beat the Vikings, who had 13 wins in a wild card round in the playoffs. So I'm bought in on the Giants. I am dead scared of them as an Eagles fan, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do. I'm actually very intrigued to watch them, even though they're one of our rivals. And yeah, so that's the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope that I have not upset any of my fellow Eagles fans, but I thought that I would do what we always do and just, pessimistically think about how our team could potentially lose this season. But thank you so much for watching. It's been a great video. Peace.
But I'm trying to phone home. I feel like it's someone watching me. I had to get a clone. Drinking that Kool-Aid just out of white cup. This ain't nothing but a foe. I'm not trying to take your life. I'm trying to take you out of space moving slow.